Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video we've got all 9 of our Bolens Ride-a-matics out, as you can see here, all lined up on the grass, and they range from 1960 through to 1962, and we'll be going through each of these today with you. And the main point of doing this is so that we can kind of go through what each of these needs, so we have a definitive job and parts list that we can use in the future. Now, we've already tried to do this video before, and we had to scrap said video because of the wind noise in the background, making it pretty much intolerable to watch. And we are redoing it today. However, unfortunately, the wind is still just as bad, so we won't be doing the videoing outside. Also, it appears that half the bird population of England has decided to show up right now as well to make as much noise as possible, so we will be pulling the equipment into the workshop here and going through them in sections, which will go by year, since we've got 2 1960s, 3 1961s and 4 1962s in our lineup. So I think we should probably start with our 1960s. We have both of our 1960 Ride-a-matics in here now. And Ride-a-matics were imported to the UK from 1959 through to 1962, so we don't actually have the full set of UK Ride-a-matics because we don't have a 59, obviously. And the main difference with one of those is the front axle. It's round rather than this kind of I-beam type shape, and a few other differences like a different shaped drag link and some brackets that are slightly different, a lot more kind of curvy shapes on a 59 compared to a 60. So that's the one UK imported model that we're missing from before kind of the series that we've got. Now, this Ride-a-matic you've seen plenty of in our mechanical restoration of it, and where we've left this in the last video is it not running very well and then kind of stalling. But we've had a few suggestions as to what to do with this. Now we're going to start off with the condenser and hope that might solve a few issues, and just run through the various things that could be the problems with this engine. The chassis and everything we're perfectly happy with, so it is just concentrating with the engine now and doing some tweaking and tuning as well, none of which is really videoable or entertaining to watch because it will take plenty of time to do not a lot effectively. So most of that will be done in the background, and then hopefully we can update you in a little while saying that this is running as it should be, but we'll see about that. And this second 1960 Ride-a-matic was actually bought a few years ago as a parts donor for this project. However, as we were getting towards the end of this project, we realized that we had plenty of spares left over on this tractor, and it was quite complete, and it would have been a waste to just kind of leave it sitting half complete and not try to get all the parts that it needs. And we pretty much have everything we need now. The remaining parts we should be able to make up for it, so that's not a problem. And over the last kind of year or so, we've imported plenty of parts from America, such as the grille, fuel tank, stuff like that. And as you can see, there is just a scrap engine block in it at the moment because we needed to put that on so that we could fix the grille in place, just so that it was all together. Now we do have an engine for this now, so that's good. We've tested it out, it runs quite nicely. So this might be started soon, we'll have to see, but this is going to be fully stripped down. It will be a full paint restoration. It will get the same mechanical treatment as our other 1960 Ride-a-matic here, but we will mainly be covering the paint stuff because, following your feedback and also what we'd prefer to do with this project, we'll kind of skim over the mechanical stuff that we've already done and we've already shown on video with the other one, and go more in depth with some of the work that you haven't seen before and more specifically all of the paintwork stuff that we'll have to be doing on this tractor. Now, you will have noticed as I'm going through these, I kind of refer to one as the 1960 and the other is the other one. And we did talk about giving these names, which we haven't decided on yet. Thank you for all your suggestions. And whenever we start this 1960 project, we will probably decide the names then. So we haven't ignored them yet, but we will be going through them. Or we haven't ignored them at all, sorry. But we haven't chosen yet, is what I meant to say. And we will choose the names for them in that video and let you know what we go for. But that is pretty much where we are with our two 1960s. So let's go on to the 61s. Now on to our 1961 Ride-a-matics, and as you saw earlier, we have 3 of them. And we will start with this green Ride-a-matic, which we bought last year for not very much money at all. And it came with an underbelly deck, and we've done quite a few things to this since getting it. It is now running. It previously had the flywheel exit the engine, to put it that way. So we had quite a lot of work to do and parts to get for the engine. And we had quite a bit of work to do kind of undoing modifications that previous owners had done on this as well, such as the gearbox being full of what appeared to be grease, so that all had to be flushed. And this is also now converted to battery ignition rather than magneto, which means that this should be more reliable. And we haven't actually used this very much since getting it running. However, what we're doing with each of our Ride-a-matics from the 3 Ride-a-matics project, which is kind of the project under which we got this one, and then 2 of our 1962 Ride-a-matics running, is that we're going through each one of those, kind of using them more regularly to find out what their problems are and starting to go through those. This is kind of back of the list for that treatment, unfortunately, but we'll get around to it and iron out any further issues. But for now, that runs all right. And the second one here, our blue 1961 Ride-a-matic, or at least we call it the blue one. It is mainly gold, although it's a repainted gold rather than the original. At least we think so, because there's a few paint drips in various places, and it's not quite the right shade, but interesting. And Dad got this tractor many years ago at an auction. I think it was actually one of the first tractors that he got, and it came with a front to reel mower, which we haven't actually tried yet. That's something to do in the future. This has been in storage for quite a while. It was one of the first projects on my channel. It was actually the first edited videos on my channel, were the project videos of this tractor. And then we put it in storage for a while, and we only got it out recently to get it running again, which we replaced the coil on it because it was very difficult to start, and it made it much easier to start, but now it smokes, which it didn't used to do. So we've got some investigation to do there as to whether we've introduced this smoking problem to it and what we can do to solve that, because we're not too happy that we've kind of introduced that problem. And since working on this tractor a number of years ago, we've also got a new belt guard for the side, which means that this has all the belt guards it needs, which is only one since this is a pull start. Should have probably said, when it comes to belt guards, this 1961 has all the belt guards that it needs, which it has one for this side and one for the other side to cover the electric start belt. So all of the electric start Ride-a-matics have 2 belt guards, pull starts, only one to cover the Versamatic side, and we are still missing a few of these. There's one for one of our 1960s that we need, but we're going to make that one because it's more of a boxy shape, whereas these, if you look at them, they're pretty curvy. That'd be very difficult for us to do, I think, actually just fabricating one of these. And whenever they come up for sale, even in America, they're quite rare because owners seem to kind of take them off and lose them. They go pretty quickly whenever they're sold, so it's hard to get hold of these, but we do still need a few of them, mainly for our 1962s though, because all 3 of these Ride-a-matics have the belt guards that they need. So we'll move on to this Ride-a-matic, which is probably the Ride-a-matic in our collection that you've seen the least of. This one came from the same place as our mechanical restoration 1960, and one of our 1962s still in the lineup, and a number of our other tractors, including our red 1054, blue 1054, stuff like that. We bought about 10 Bolens, I think, from a collector that was selling his collection of Bolens wheel horses, a couple of Cub Cadets, those kind of things, and we took all of the Bolens, and this is largely complete, this tractor, and most of it is quite original. I think the word patina is a bit stretched with how rusty this is, but I think it's quite nice to see something in original condition but not rusted through. And we actually have a picture of this when it was owned by the previous owner, of it was in a trailer being towed by an International, so a full-size tractor, and this was in one trailer behind it, and then behind that trailer there was another trailer in which there was a Ride-a-matic snowplow, which we actually now have. It's in very poor condition, so it's only really good for replicating, which we intend to do at some point in future. But that's what this tractor would have been used for in the past, and you can see it's still got its front lift system here. Definitely needs work to get that to being operational again. And while we're at the front end here, should also mention a couple of things we've noticed. Firstly, the front axle has green paint on it, suggesting it's from a 1960, which is unfortunate because the 1961 Ride-a-matics had the bushings already in the front axle, so that means we've got some drilling to do on this one. And this stub axle is actually bent so that wheel isn't sitting straight. It was a lot worse than it is now. We bent it so that it'd be easier to move, but that still needs work. However, we don't need to do that work because we imported a pair of stub axles for this, which will go onto this tractor at some point. And this front axle is actually mounted the wrong way around as well. You can see the bump stops for the stub axles facing forwards, so not quite sure why that was done, but it was. But the main modification on this tractor, which you may have noticed already, is the steering. It's got a kind of car style steering box which goes through the slot for the attachment lift lever, so that's missing and will need replacing. We do have one, but we've got two tractors that need attachment lift levers, so either this one has one or it needs one still. And through importing parts, we actually have all the bits we need when it comes to a steering column, quadrant, and everything like that to take this back to original. So we're very glad that we've got a decent amount of parts now for these tractors, because this is close to having everything it needs. And if we move around to the back of it, you can see that it has this very interestingly mounted tow bar. Definitely not original, but that's something we noticed on a lot of tractors from this collector. He had quite a few interesting, very heavy duty tow bars mounted on the back of these Bolens. And you may have noticed that this doesn't have any kind of 3-point hitch stuff mounted on it, which, if we kind of take a minute to talk about tow hitches and 3-point hitches on these Ride-a-matics, both of these were optional extras, or at least for the 1960s and 1961s. Tow bars became standard for the 1962s because they were made into the back chassis plate, which you'll see when we look at those tractors in a minute. So as standard, you would just have this plate at the back of the chassis and none of the other stuff around it. But then, optional extra for any rear mounted attachments, you get this top cast part, the lift arm here that goes kind of through here under the chassis to lift lever, and the two side arms, and then you effectively put a bar part in there, which then sticks out to here somewhere, has a hole in it, and that will mount to the Bolens attachments, and then your two pivot points down there. If any of you have watched some of our old videos where we had a plough set up on one of our Ride-a-matics, you'll see what I mean by that setup. And then when it comes to a tow hitch, I'll show you on this one, and this was the same setup for a 1960 as a 1961, by the way. You got one of these plates, which is literally just a shaped plate with a couple of holes drilled in it and a bit of pipe welded in. That mounts into here, and then you get one of these, which again is a pretty simple assembly, which you put through there, which that's quite tight, probably needs opening up, but yeah, you slide that in there, and then you put the pin in, put a clip in there, and your tow hitch is fitted. Very easy to remove, and also we find these very useful because, I mean, when these came out of the factory, Bolens made a few kind of tow behind attachments like a roller and a dump cart, stuff like that, and they were designed to have kind of 2 contact points on here, so you'd kind of sit them like that. The tow bar would be one of these effectively, and you'd sit it on top of or below both of these, well, on top of probably. We find it useful for just towing trailers because you can have effectively 4 towing heights. You can either put it on here, here, or you turn that upside down, you've got a couple of higher mounting points as well. So very versatile, and that's why we actually use one of these on our gold 1962 Ride-a-matic, even though it shouldn't have one on there. We'll talk about that when we come to that tractor. But as you can see, these two have everything they need in terms of 3-point hitches. This needs a tow hitch, but seeing as we've seemed to have exhausted the world's supply of those, we'll probably make up a few of our own since they're not too difficult by the looks of them. And this 1961 needs all of those parts, which we'll have to source over time. So we've got our 462s in here now. It's a bit of a squeeze, but we've managed it. So we'll go through each one individually now, and we'll start on this end with our red 1962 Ride-a-matic, also bought last year. And this was nearly in running condition when we bought it. We only had to do a few things, which were finishing off the battery ignition conversion that the previous owner had started but not finished, and after that it was pretty much ready to get going. We've used it a bit since and we're pretty happy with how it runs. The only thing we've noticed on this really that's bad is the fact that most of the bolts are seized or badly rusted, so if we ever want to do a full restoration on this in future, I feel like we're going to be snapping quite a few fixings, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And this came with an underbelly deck as well, like that green 1961, and we have both of the belt guards for this. It came with the one for the Rideamatic side, which, by the way, you may notice is different on a 1962 than a 61. You can see there's that plate round the front as an extra cover for the Rideamatic pulleys, as health and safety was invented around the time of these tractors being made. And then we managed to get the one for the electric start side from America, and we still need one of those, as you'll see as we move down the line. Next up is our gold 1962, which has been repainted in the past by a previous owner. Not very well, but well enough that this looks presentable. It had a Honda GX140 swapped into it, which is 5 horsepower, so this is a bit underpowered. However, due to the fact that it's a modern engine, for its reliability and low fuel consumption, we often end up jumping on this tractor over anything else when it comes to doing random jobs. So this gets the most use out of anything now, pretty much. We've got tri-rib tyres on the front, which we fitted, and this has been used for many things, including ploughing a couple of shows in the past. And while the modern engine swap is convenient, it does look pretty horrible. So in future we're hoping to possibly do some modifications there, probably keep it as a modern engine but try to make it look much nicer, and possibly even try and find a way of fitting a Kohler cowling to a Honda engine is one of the ideas that we had to try and make it fit, because one of the best parts about the 1962s, which some people regard as the uglier Ride-a-matics, one of the better parts is how the engine cowling fits in with the grille and the bonnet, everything there. That looks quite neat, so it'd be nice if we could somehow fix this tractor up to look like that again, because there's been plenty taken out of the bonnet and the grille pretty unnecessarily there. You can see there's a massive gap around the Honda, so plenty of work to do there in future, but that runs nicely. Now we have our orange 62, which is the last of our 3 Ride-a-matics project tractors that we'll go over in this video, and this had a rod that was in quite a few pieces in the engine, or the original engine, so that got swapped out because the crankshaft needs machining or replacing, which we'll do at some point in the future. So we swapped in a new K181 into there, did our battery ignition conversion, and washed out the gearbox and a few other things besides. And this now runs quite nicely. It's quite quiet as well, which is nice. And we've been using this, or trying to use this, a lot more recently. As we were saying earlier with our green 1961, we're going through each of these by running them up a bit, putting some load on them, and working out what issues they have. And this is this tractor's turn now, so I noted a couple of things, but overall we're pretty happy with how this is running. I almost forgot, we also didn't have most of the Ride-a-matic parts originally, but that's another thing that we imported over from America to put onto this tractor to make it complete. And while this has the deck hangers, we didn't get a deck with this. I'm sure it was long gone. And this past of this tractor was living on an airfield, and where I assume it cut grass around the airstrip, or possibly even was used as an aircraft tug, who knows. Unfortunately, we didn't get any more to the story when it comes to that, but I'm sure that would have been quite interesting to know more about that tractor. And then we come to the last in our 1962 lineup, which is the only one that's not running, and it is far from it. This is the 1962 that I was on about earlier, that came from the same place as that very rusty 1961. And this has the wrong engine in it. It's got a tiny Tecumseh engine in there, so talking about being underpowered with the 62 Ride-a-matic with the Honda, this would be very underpowered, which that's mounted to a block of wood to get it to roughly the right height. This is very rusty. The hood hinge is actually seized, so although we've been spraying releasing agent on it, it's quite hard to look at most of the stuff on this. It's missing almost all of the PTO engagement stuff. The lever is snapped or cut off, and all of the engagement bars and stuff on this side, the spring that mounts down there, it's all not there. However, another thing that we've imported recently from the US, so this is getting closer to having all of the parts it needs as well. Steering's pretty heavy on this because someone's welded up all of the track rod ends in the past, which is interesting. And it's missing a few things as we kind of look around, small things such as the chrome bit that goes over the top of the steering wheel. It's obviously missing a seat. That doesn't look very comfortable. The wheel arches have been raised up, which is a shame because they've kind of been butchered to do that, and so is the toolbox, so that needs some work on it. And they were raised to fit some huge 16-inch wheels that were fitted to this, which I assume were the root cause of the differential problems that we showed in a different video in the past. And those, we've now got some diff parts for this tractor, some of which need a bit of machining to fit, but that hopefully won't be a problem. Hopefully that'll solve the issues there, and then we just need to iron out any problems with the gearbox to make sure that this is actually a viable tractor. As you can see, there is missing the lift lever as well. And on the subject of the lift lever, we should probably come around to the back and have a look at what hitches there are. That was a good segue, that was. And as you can see on the back here, this just has the two side arms, and it didn't originally have those, but when we've been getting parts shipments from America, these are the bits that we've most easily been finding, and when we get them over to this country, we just stick them onto a tractor so that they're with something and not just sitting there. So that's why those have been fitted to that. Orange 62 didn't have any of the lift parts because, as I said before, optional extra, but we've now got the lift arms for this, and you can see it's got a 62 style tow hitch here, which is built into the chassis back plate, and there's a better example of that further down the line, which we'll show in a minute. Our gold 1962 does have the full setup. It's just we took the cast part off to take to a local foundry to see if we could possibly get some of those cast, and we need to chase that up because I haven't heard anything back recently. And as you can see, we've got a 61 or 60 style tow hitch on this because that's all we had until we bought these other Ride-a-matics recently. And as you can see by the fact that it's quite shiny, it gets plenty of use on all of the different settings. So yeah, this is well used and very useful. And probably the best example of a 1962 tow hitch and attachment lift system is our red 1962 here. You can see it's got the full 3-point setup, and a very good condition tow hitch here. You can see it's got the proper curve around there, and the hole's in good condition, unlike that orange one, which is kind of almost squashed, which is part of what leads me to my aircraft tug theory. If it was pushing stuff back, and that could cause that damage. So ideally we need 3 of these, because ideally we'd switch this one out to be good condition. So that's something that we need quite a few of. And there's a few belt guards that we're missing as well. I probably should have mentioned on these ones. This orange 62 needs both of them, the Rideamatic side and the electric start, and the very rusty 62 just needs the Rideamatic side because it was originally a pull start tractor. I appreciate this video is getting quite long now, so I'll try and keep this end bit short. Also, apologies for the background noise. There's been quite a few cars going down the lane today, but do let us know in the comment section below which of our Ride-a-matics you think is your favourite. We're pretty happy with our collection. However, we are looking to possibly expand it with a few earlier models. We're maybe not so enthusiastic about a 1959, seeing as it's pretty similar to a 1960. The main reason for getting one of those would be to kind of complete the lineup of one of each year. We're more keen to get a 1956, 57 or 58 Ride-a-matic, which weren't originally imported to the UK. There's a couple over here in this country that have been imported by people since, but they weren't originally imported at the time of manufacture. So we'd like to get a couple of those over here because we do like the look of those machines. They look pretty neat, and that'd be a pretty good show display as well. The issue we've got there is obviously importing the logistics around that. Need effectively someone in the US that would be willing to put a tractor on a pallet or make up some sort of box thing to put it in, and then get it moved to a port in the US, and then obviously the shipping company will do most of the rest of it, and then we can pick it up here in the UK. So that's the main bit that we've been struggling with that kind of operation, which is a shame because we've spotted a couple of kind of 1957 Ride-a-matics with attachments that we've fancied getting, but the wrong side of the world for us, unfortunately. But we'll see in future. Hopefully we'll be able to put that infrastructure in place and possibly get a couple of early Ride-a-matics for our lineup as well. And the other thing we're looking at doing at the moment is getting some of our Ride-a-matic attachments out and operational so that we can fit them to some of our working Ride-a-matics and see how they go, see how they compare to some of our other tractors, because we haven't really put any attachments besides a plough on a Ride-a-matic before. And we have 5 running reliably now, and a 6th, the 1960, that just needs a few tweaks to get it there. So we are in a good position to start getting some attachments sorted as well. But that is it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.